Well, thank you very much for asking me to come along and speak. I am actually at the Royal Free today, covering strike shifts at the moment to make sure that the service keeps going. And welcome to my office. But so thank you very much, Nee, for that very kind introduction. I've been at the Royal Free actually since 1st of August 1994.
Wow.
And was away for a few years as part of my training, but have been a consultant here since 2006. And as Nee was saying, was the clinical lead of kidney transplantation up until the end of 2024, where I stood down, and I'm now the chair of the NHSBT Kidney Advisory Group, covering the whole of the UK. And I also do some work in collaboratives across a number of different organ groups. What I thought I would do is talk a little bit about what's going on nationally, a little bit about some of the data locally, and then just open it up to any questions that I can try and answer for you. So where to start, really? I think probably nationally, this is the most important work that is being going on. This is the organ utilization group report that was published in February 2023, honoring the gift of donation and really focusing on how we can make the most of the organs that are donated, but also how we can improve the service that we provide to patients. This is the report, and it's 12 recommendations. And I don't want you to sort of focus on all of these 12 recommendations, because you probably won't be able to read all of these recommendations. But these are the recommendations that we've been working to over the last couple of years in a group called ISU, or the Implementing Steering Group of the Organ Utilization Group report. And I think probably this is the first two recommendations, and that is to make sure that we place patients at the heart of our service. And this is making sure that patients have equal access to transplantation, and they have the best access to transplantation, irrelevant of where they are in the country. But in addition to that, as they were working through the report and all the committees they have, and I realized that some of the people on this call today probably contributed to that work, the feeling was that patients didn't always have the opportunity to contribute to their service or have their voices heard. So I think this is recommendation 2 is a really important recommendation, that all transplant services should be run with reference to patient feedback. And you would have seen, and I will show you some of the data at the end, the local patient reported experience measures. So how has NHSBT delivered the OUG strategy, or how are they delivering it? And trying to put all of those 12 recommendations, there are a number of different subgroups, but the 4 main implementation steering group subgroups are here. This is innovation, which I'll talk a bit more about to start with. Trust engagement, how to get trusts engaged in transplantation, make sure that their transplant unit is all the way up at the top and the voice of transplantation is being heard within a busy trust. How to engage with patients and how to make sure that their voices are heard, and how we make sure that the services that we provide are driven by patient voices. And then how we work with commissioners and how services are commissioned and regulated. Out of those 4 ISU subgroups, NHSBT had a specific remit to look at the innovation, and that was further subdivided into three areas. One, the bit at the top, the histocompatibility and immunogenetics. This is how we match kidneys and how we match kidneys to recipients, and also how we can match kidneys who are very difficult to match. And that was one subgroup. The assessment and recovery centers, which I'll talk about in the next slide, and also xenotransplantation. Can we take kidneys from other animals to then transplant into humans to try and cover that shortage gap in kidney supply? So first of all, this is ARCs, and ARC stands for Assessment and Recovery Center. And this is how they work. And these are organs that may have otherwise been discarded because we don't have enough information on the kidney or the function of the kidney. And what you can see here is that these kidneys are retrieved and they are transported to an assessment and recovery center. And within that assessment and recovery center, they are put on pumps that will perfuse them with warm blood that will assess the function of the kidney and whether they are suitable to transplant, and try and resuscitate those kidneys so they could be used rather than ended up being discarded. And you'd be delighted to know that the Royal Free is one of the 5 kidney assessment and recovery centres in the UK, and that information has only just come out on Thursday this week. So we will be a centre that will be taking kidneys that may not be used to try and assess them, recover them, resuscitate them, and then hopefully they will go on to be transplanted. And the whole idea is we will be able to transplant kidneys that otherwise would have been discarded to increase the number of kidneys that are available. This is also something I think that's quite exciting, and this has been for the whole time that I've been into transplantation. Xenotransplantation, or taking kidneys from pigs in this situation and being able to transplant them into humans as a source of workable organs. Now, over the years, there are many hurdles that people have had to get through. One, making sure that those animals, the pigs, don't have specific infections that they might transmit. Ways of shielding the kidney from the human immune system to make sure that they don't destroy it as well. And over the years, that has slowly been progressing. And then there were a few cases where kidneys were transplanted in America into brain dead recipients to see how they were going. And then this year, there have been cases where kidneys from pigs have been transplanted into humans as a therapy. So this is one of those papers that was in the New England Journal of Medicine this year, with a patient that received a kidney from a pig with a lot of immune suppression here. And as you can see, this is a nice, healthy looking kidney inside someone that perfuses well on scans. And the creatinine fell very nicely after the kidney transplant. They did have a blip of rejection here with a rise in the creatinine, which you can see on this panel of biopsies here that they treated, and that went away. And this patient was doing very well up until about 50 days when they ran into problems with infection and unfortunately demised. But what I would say to you is, certainly over the 25 or 30 years that I've been within transplantation, this has always been on the horizon. And it's really to say that this is getting closer, and NHSBT are focusing on how this could be a therapy for patients within the UK. What else are we doing in the organ utilization group? We are looking at reducing variability. This is a graph showing the percentage of patients who have been listed for a kidney transplant before they start dialysis. And as you can see here, that there is, from all the centres, a big difference, with almost 70% of the patients in Belfast being listed for a kidney transplant before they start dialysis, all the way down to 28% down here. You're glad to know that the Royal Free is here towards the top end, at about half our patients are listed for a transplant before they start on dialysis. But what we want to do within NHSBT is try and make sure that there isn't this variation across the UK, that we can try and take the lessons from the best performing units and then apply them to the whole of the UK. In addition to that, what about organs that are declined? And this is what we call a funnel plot. This is looking at the percentage of organs that were eventually transplanted to see if they were declined when they were initially offered to different centres. And all of these dots are different centres across the UK. This is the average rate of decline. And then this is 2 standard deviations and 3 standard deviations from the average here. So again, there is a significant variation in units that will accept kidneys that are eventually transplanted. And most people would be quite horrified to see that over 50% of kidneys that were initially transplanted were actually declined when they were initially offered. Here again, this is the Royal Free. We have quite a low rate of decline here. We're Centre V, where we only declined just under 40% of kidneys that were eventually transplanted. And although that does sound like a high number, it may be that that kidney is not right for that recipient, and they wait possibly for a better kidney.
Could I just ask a question,
Yeah.
please, Dr. Jones? When the rejection, is
Yeah.
that something that comes through advice from the clinician, from yourself, say, or somebody, one of your colleagues, or is that it's not just a patient decision, presumably?
No, so and that rejection, that decline has got a variety of different issues in it. One may be that the clinicians have looked at the organ on offer and don't feel that the function is good enough, or they've looked at the donor on offer and feel that there is a risk there. They may have had an infection that could be transmitted, or a previous cancer or something like that that's not suitable for that recipient. But also, if someone's unwell, I was on call last week and phoned some people for a kidney, and they were unwell because there's a lot of flu going around at the moment. So recipient unfit. And that you're right, there is a proportion there where patients feel that that's not the right kidney for them, and they decline that organ. So it's a whole variety of different reasons within that.
Well, I see. Thank you.
This is another graph that shows quite significant variation. This is the waiting time points before someone receives a kidney transplant in all the different units across the UK. Now, there are reasons here why these centres are fast. Part of it is because they're very aggressive in accepting organs, but part of it again is that these were the 3 centres that managed to keep transplanting during the pandemic. So there may be a reason why these are very short, but again, even without that, you can see that there's significant variation across the country. And that's something that NHSBT are looking at to try and reduce that variation in the time people wait for their kidney transplant. What about national data? Where are we nationally, and what are the issues nationally? Well, this is looking at the waiting list for kidney transplantation, and this is just kidneys alone. And as you can see, back in 2016, 17, 18, 19, the waiting list, or the number of people waiting for a kidney, was falling. Then we hit the pandemic, and a number of people were suspended off the waiting list. But then even as they've gone on, what's happened post-pandemic is that the waiting list is now rising, and it's up to 6,800 people waiting for a kidney transplant at the moment, and that just continues to keep rising. Why is that? Well, this is the number of kidney transplants that we do within the UK. And on average, we usually do just over 3,000 kidneys per year, of which these white sections here is living donors, and then these two here together are deceased donors. And as you can see, the pandemic hit, there was a drop in transplantation, and it hasn't, although it's recovered a little bit, it hasn't quite recovered back to where it was pre-pandemic. And this is another issue that NHSBT are trying to focus on to increase the number of kidney transplants. This is also a reason why the number of donors is reduced at the moment. This is the consent rate for kidney donation in the UK. And the consent rate leading into the pandemic, or people consenting for organ donation, was somewhere around about 60 to 70%. And then as we went into the pandemic, there was an increase in consent rate. But unfortunately, that consent rate has been dropping off, even with the introduction of deemed consent for organ donation, and continues to fall. Although there is a little bit of a lift towards the end, we'll have to wait and see whether that continues its increase. And NHSBT are hoping to do a campaign of information to try and increase that consent rate for organ donation. What about locally? What about local transplantation? Well, the Royal Free is the 5th largest kidney unit in the United Kingdom. And we sit here in the number of patients that we look after overall, be that dialysis patients or transplant patients. What about survival? Certainly, this is the percentage of patients who are still alive after 5 years after their kidney transplantation. And again, significant variation, but you'll be glad to know that the Royal Free is right up here with the highest rate of survival after a kidney transplant in the UK. Lastly, this is what I was talking about earlier on, looking at patient experience and feeding that back into the people running the units. This is the Royal Free data from the patient experience measures. And this is just transplantation at this point. And as you can see, overall, we have some pretty good metrics and people very satisfied with their service, but there is still work to do. And I am aware of that there are still areas that we need to tidy up to try and make as many people as happy as possible with the service that we deliver. So I'm going to stop there. And if there's any questions people want to ask me.
Anyone with a question, please mention your name and ask your question.
Hi, Gareth.
It's Gwen.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
It's Gwen. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go on.
Right. Right at the beginning, Dr. Jones, you was talking about the length of time trying to deal with the kidneys that would be disregarded. How long would you be looking to keep them in the lab to recover them?
Yeah, about 4 hours.
Okay.
Somewhere around about 4 to 6 hours. And what will happen is the kidneys will come in as they do in fluid surrounded by ice, so they're nice and cold and well preserved. And then what will happen is we will put them onto a machine that pumps warmed blood around them. And we will look at a variety of different metabolic markers in the kidney, and may even take a piece of the kidney to see whether that kidney is a good kidney and can be recovered to be transplanted.
Right.
So about 4
Okay,
to
thank
6
you.
hours. Yep.
Next person, please.
Yeah, hi Gareth, Miss Joe.
Hi,
You
Joe.
mentioned about at the start similar sort of question about the Royal being an ARC centre and recovering kidneys which would otherwise have been discarded. What sort of reasons would they have been otherwise discarded?
Okay, so there are kidneys that are not used because there may have been substantial damage, etc., to them. But there are also, and I think the kidneys that would most benefit from this is people in the end phase of their life where their kidney function has deteriorated, but that kidney function would get better, but we don't know that, and we can't guess that in the time frame that we have, that we're looking after them before we take the kidney. So what you can do is then put them on this perfusion rig, put warm blood around to then reassess the kidney and see whether it's a worthwhile kidney. And what you're trying to do is say, is that kidney function deteriorated because they're very unwell and it will eventually recover, or is that kidney function the poor kidney function they had even before they became unwell? And it's the former ones that you want that are going to recover kidney function when you eventually transplant them. But sometimes that can be very difficult to predict, and at the moment it's not guesswork, but we just don't know 100% they're going to recover.
Okay, thanks. That's really useful. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patricia, and as a double transplanted kidney patient, Dr. Gareth, you know me very well.
Yeah.
I would have serious concerns about getting a kidney from a pig. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
Or not just a pig, an animal.
Yeah.
What sort of mental health support would a patient get? Can
Yeah.
they say no?
Yeah,
Or how do
absolutely.
you match it? How does it work?
So the xenotransplantation is really in its infancy, and it hasn't started in the UK at all yet. The people that they have published those reports on, and certainly the man that I showed the case of, were people who were sort of running out of access for dialysis and were really stuck, and they had very little option and weren't going to be transplanted very quickly. You're right. For those patients in those cases, they've had to put them through lots of support, counselling, etc. It's difficult for me to predict what's going to happen when it comes to the UK, but I agree with you. Yes, it will be something that people might want to opt into. It will be. It won't be for average patients who might be easily able to get a kidney, who are doing well. I think we will have to get a lot of experience in this area first, and it will be people, you're right, who will need lots of support going through that.
Thank you.
In general, why do people wait? Some people wait longer. One, they may be very difficult to match for their genetic makeup, their HLA type. Two, blood group B is a huge issue within the United Kingdom. And blood group B patients tend to wait longer because there's many more people with blood group B who need a kidney compared with blood group B in the population who may donate. And then lastly, people who might have antibodies in their blood to other people's genetic makeup, which means that we can't offer them kidneys from anyone. So if you want to get your dialysis consultant to drop us an email or speak to us, we can try and have a look into that on a more specific basis. And that's usually what I suggest to people, is they speak to their dialysis or low clearance consultant first, and then if they are not sure why, they can ask us and we can have a look into it further.
Yes, so it's Carol Bryant. And Gareth, the question I have is actually not to do with your talk, which was excellent, and thank you very much for that. But as the person who runs the website for the charity, can I have permission to use your slides and put them up on the website?
Yes, I can probably give you all of those slides. I will just need to ask NHSBT about the consent data because I am privy to extra information.
All right.
And I will just need to ask them about that one. But yes, for the rest of them, completely, you're more than welcome to have them.
Yeah, because there are patients who may have been unable to attend today. So if it's up on the site, they can actually see it.
I'll have a look and see if a lot of this is all in the public domain, and I've taken it from the organ specific report. But I just that one, and I will find out for you.
Right, okay. Because the thing is, I don't know if you're aware, but they have actually recorded the whole of this session. So
Okay.
I can actually put the recording up. But if there's a bit you don't want used, we can take
I'm pretty
it out.
sure that NHSBT will say yes, because I think that consent rate's in the public domain, but I will just make 100% sure.
All right, okay. Thank you very much.
So my question
is Jill's hand up? Jill,
okay.
but she's muted.
Okay, Jill.
It was just a quick question, Gareth. You said we were 5th on the list. I couldn't read all the other. What are the first 4, please?
Oh, who were the first 4? So here we go. Let me take you back. The first 4 the largest centre is West London. So interestingly, out of the top 5, 3 out of 5 are in North London.
Right.
Yeah. So here we go. I will show you this again. So this one here is London West. Yeah, that's Imperial.
Oh, right.
This bar here. The second largest here is Birmingham. Yeah, which is there. Then the third largest is Barts, which is East London.
Yeah.
Then it's Leicester, I think. Where's Leicester? Here, Leicester. And then it's us.
Okay. Thank you. I wondered where Guy's and
Guy's
St.
and
George's
Tommy's
came.
Okay, so Guy's is the next one down there, number 6. St. George's, interestingly, is actually quite a small unit themselves. They do a lot of transplants for other places, such as St. Heliers, such as Brighton, Eastbourne, etc. But then themselves, they're quite a small unit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, what I want to know is about organ donation, live organ donation.
Yes.
What is happening?
So what is happening? So you're right. The numbers haven't recovered since the pandemic, but they're almost back. So I reckon this year. So I was saying I'm privy to see the data each month as part of NHSBT. Living donation has just got back to its pre-pandemic level, but what they're trying to do is increase that level of organ donation further. In addition to that, you'll know that there is the paired exchange program. So if someone has a donor that can't give to them for some reason, they're not compatible, that donor can give to someone else, and their donor can give to you, and that can be built up into 3s. And in addition to that, there's chains, where an altruistic donor, someone who's come to give their kidney to anyone, starts off a chain of donations. One of the things that they were talking about at the last kidney advisory group was whether we should think about the chains at the moment, and the exchanges are limited to 3. So you can only have 3 pairs within an exchange. The question is, should they increase that to 4? Or even up to 5? And the other thing is whether they should consider breaking chains or exchanges So at the moment, if you do an exchange, it all happens on the same day across the country. All 3 transplants happen at the same day. Would it be easier to make it a longer chain, so you have maybe 2 transplants, then a break, then another 2 or 3 transplants, then a break, then another 2 or 3 transplants, if you see what I mean? So those are all options they're looking for, and each one of those options increases the number of transplants that happen, but it also increases the complexity as well. And that's why they've kept it at 3, but they're thinking of increasing it. There is also a drive to increase living donation, and I will show you this. One of the things that we have done, and I will put this up here, is that we have, with the people from Brighton, try to help people to have that conversation about living donation. And this is an A5 card, which on the front says that. And then when you turn it round on the back, it has some information about living donation, the contact details for our coordinators, and a QR code that takes people straight to the Dangor Trust. And that's a tool that we've been using to give it to people, so they can either give it or leave it around, etc., for people to pick up. Because the thing that I often come across is when you say, do you have a live donor? People go, well, I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask someone. And then when you speak to the donor, they go, well, I'm not going to do anything because they haven't asked me. And it's trying to bring those 2 groups together. So that's just one of the tools that ourselves and NHSBT are looking at. We've had things like donor advocates and things like that, and we've put the patient evenings back together again. They stopped during the pandemic, and it took us a long while to get them going. So we're trying to push living donation. A live donor kidney transplant is the best way of receiving a kidney.
Thank you very much. Yeah. It is almost time. One more question.
Right.
Yeah. Please go on.
Hello, Dr. Jones. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your talk. It's very concise and very informative. I just wanted to ask about the recipients of kidney donations. Does age play a big part in the process to determine who receives a donation?
So who goes on to the waiting list? The answer to that is probably no. Yeah. And in fact, it doesn't necessarily go on the sort of chronological age, but one of the things that we look at quite significantly is frailty, and frailty being how resilient you are to taking the knocks that would be involved in going through a transplant. So the assessment actually involves a number of different aspects, and it's not so much age, but it's frailty. And what we do know is that as you get older, you have less resilience to the knock. So it's part of it, but not the reason. The whole reason is what I would say.
Thank you. That's very informative. Thank you.
Yeah, I should just add, there's Dr. Jones will be aware of, is it one of my previous ex-dialyzer? He's about 80 years old, Frank Vibo. He's a concert pianist, and he had to give up his work whilst he was on dialysis, but he has recently had a transplant, and I think he's nearly 80. He may be 80 now, and he's still doing pretty well. And he was, even at his age, he was traveling up to Manchester to just to give lectures on music. So he is a very good example of someone who's really quite elderly, but is sufficiently able to withstand the trauma of the transplant and go on and flourish. So great example, really.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning it.
Yeah. Welcome.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Gareth Jones, for a very exciting and informative talk. I believe we've all taken something from it.